we have Remington now like slides and being up high and stuff. I think I told you she likes to run around the house now saying, "I'm so high." Just my favorite part is Carrie didn't tell me that. Like she just a couple of mornings ago woke up and was running around in the morning screaming, "I'm so high," and then every now and then would throw in "up," and I'm like, "You gotta say the word up." Anyway, all right, so. All right, guys, welcome to Talking Ship. I'm Will Knopfsinger, and this is
Paulo Meglu. And today we are talking about
Overhauls
and refits.
and
Mostly overhauls, though.
and rebuilds.
Yeah,
And
overhauls and rebuilds.
This will be a shorter episode, although for us it'll be a full-blown 40 minutes because we just recorded absolutely nothing for 30 minutes while having the camera facing away from us like this.
Yeah.
You don't know what's happening. In fact, I should check this and just make sure. Yeah, we're good.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so here we are.
And we will have dogs running around distracting us today. We're not at HQ, we're at Paulo's house.
Yep.
And yeah, so we'll jump right on into this. And maybe at the end we could tell a fun story about, I'll think of that, you know, a little 5-minute fun story of something that's happened to us.
So we've come across this a lot lately, and as we've been helping customers find their boats, and the listing will say, fresh overhaul or fresh rebuild on the motors or something like that. And we've learned to ask, what do you mean by fresh overhaul? And you come to find out some people mean, oh, we just did the 1,000-hour service.
And that may have been done in 2021, and it's not really that fresh, nor is it an overhaul. But it's a term that and refit both. They're not standardized in our industry across the board, and people throw them around really loosely, oftentimes just uneducated on what these words mean. And sometimes it's, oh, they sound really good. It's a good marketing attempt. But a lot of times it's also just being lazy. Hey, we'll get that paperwork. I believe this customer. I'm sure it happened. There's bolt marks where clearly a wrench has been on there, which is all not a great way to approach a listing on a high caliber $4 or $5 million boat. But we do encounter it quite regularly. So
yeah,
I guess first refit versus rebuild, or overhaul versus rebuild. A rebuilt engine is zeroed out, fully done. Your engine hour meters back to zero.
Yeah.
And sometimes beyond factory spec, right?
Yeah. I mean, so if there were some updates, for example, like Caterpillars are often known for that. You go to rebuild them, and there are updates, new components,
better intercooler or something,
right? That would be beyond the original factory spec of that motor, but it updates it to what the equivalent motor would be. So that would be a true zero out, and that's tearing everything down and checking the specs of everything, blueprinting the turbos, all that kind of stuff.
An overhaul is still a full overhaul, top and bottom, which is important. They are different. But if you get both done fully, it's back to the original factory spec for that motor. But there's also an interesting thing for owners of boats to look into. When you are getting quoted on an overhaul, you just went through this, and not always are they. Like if you call Cat and you want the Cat dealer to do a full overhaul, they will quote you a number that often does not include the components of the bolt-ons, like turbos and things like that. So it's important to ask that question too.
Yeah, because this is where it gets confusing, right? Somebody will tell you rebuilt, and that's where it gets confusing. So my customer got 2 quotes for a rebuild on his motor, and the quotes were about $100,000 apart. Now, apples to apples, that's definitely not apples to apples. That was apples to oranges. And what you had was one being a true zero out rebuild, and the other one being a bottom end. Overhaul, right? Where they're going to say, okay, and they're going to say, we're going to just do the bottom end of the motor, and we're going to take all the components off of the running motor, or off of the existing motor and apply them to this new short block. And that's where the confusion starts to come in. So as a consumer, you're
That was
being
the
told,
cheaper quote.
right. And as a consumer, you're being told your motor's been rebuilt. They're not using overhaul. They're just saying the motor's been rebuilt, and that's all they know. So the devil's always in the details, right? So you, as a consumer, if you're talking to a mechanic, you want to ask them that, will this allow me to zero out my motors, or does the hour meter continue? Right? These motors are at 1,000 hours. I'm doing the bottom end. When I put it back together, the 1,000-hour clock continues. Right? Now they're going to have 1,100 hours on a new bottom end. That's a value added, but it's not a true overhaul.
Right. Right. And we just had a long episode on some of this, but make sure you keep all of these records so that you can. When I list the boat, I don't want to just go over these things with people. Like, I will insist on get me the actual paperwork, and sometimes it frustrates a customer, but like I want to believe you, and maybe it did happen, but if you can't produce that paperwork.
Amazon just showed up to the door.
Come on! Just shut that door.
Yeah. Hey, knuckleheads, come on.
Thanks for the update, Big Ben.
Yeah.
We appreciate knowing Amazon's here.
Yeah.
So, I want to believe you. I trust that this stuff's been done, but without knowing that, as a buyer's rep or as a listing agent, I have to pretend like none of this shit actually happened, and you may get zero credit for this amount of work that you've done.
I mean, especially on these $5, $6, $7 million boats, yacht management is one of the most important parts of it. Is your record keeping.
Agreed.
Like, by far. I mean, a lot of times when you're in that sale process, it's going down that rabbit hole of looking for paperwork, right? Figuring out what's actually been done, what's been done by the yard, and you're looking for things like this is a quote, not an invoice.
Right.
Right.
That's my favorite when you see quotes for this kind of stuff.
Right.
You're like, I need a paid invoice. I'm glad you went out and got a bunch of quotes. I have a high hour engine in a boat that I'm getting ready to list that we're approaching 10,000 hours, and we're getting all kinds of quotes. I know brokers that will take those quotes, say, oh, we've got the paperwork, and when they list the boat down the line because they didn't bother to read through everything, oh, it's all been done, and they present it, and it's like, we have a problem here. Like, congrats on getting the quotes and making a phone call, bud.
But these aren't. This isn't it. What's interesting too, like with that customer that you're talking about with the 10,000 hours, is that's a good example of record keeping, because that owner has had his diligence where he's been doing oil samples every 200 hours.
Man, they do them on that boat just because he was nervous about it when they bought it. It had 6-ish thousand hours, and now it's got 9 and change. Yeah. So they this will be a fun thing to talk about. They do oil samples every single month.
Wow,
which is crazy to me.
Right.
But he knows exactly where things stand, and they're just looking for a problem, and nothing's happened. Mm-hmm. But that's one of his requirements, and it's not cheap to do that. I don't think that's quite necessary.
Not to that point, but the fact that he can probably on his computer, but open up a binder and say, here's the blood work on this boat for the past 4,000 hours. That's the kind of stuff that.
Yeah, and we have a bore scope from when he bought it, and then another one that took place on a motor maybe a year and a half ago. So all that's going to help us, but at the end of the day, we're going to get penalized for that kind of time. He knows it. He's backpedaling a little bit from what the plan was when we bought the boat 5 years ago, to have the overhaul take place and put some time on it to sell it. Rebuilds, actually, in this case. But it's not a cheap undertaking. It's going to be on that is $650,000, and it's about a 2.5-3 month deal.
Yeah, and the again, what happens to some customers too is you have let's call it a minor failure, not a full catastrophic, on an engine, and a mechanic. There's many ways to fix it. It's not that one is let's say an improper repair. Like sometimes you'll just rebuild a cylinder to get you home, but you need to then rebuild the entire engine, to to revive the motor. But then what do you do with your other motor?
Yeah, I was going to say, here's the fun question.
Right.
You rebuild or overhaul a motor. What do you do with the other motor? And 90% of the time, my suggestion is to just bite the bullet and do the other one, because this is all about a narrative and a story to tell. And if you put your boat up for sale and you've got a discrepancy of 500 hours or whatever it is between the two motors, now there's a story to tell that isn't a good ending in a buyer's mind. If they see, oh, both engines got done because this happened to one, that's a lot better feeling than, well, when's it going to happen to the other one that didn't get touched?
Also, you need to think, like, again, if they're high hour motors and you've had, you didn't put a window in the block, but you've had a minor failure, the other motor can't be far behind typically. So if you're going to have that downtime, and if you're going to spend that money on, rolling up your carpet, opening your hatches, doing all that stuff, pay for it once, and have both motors done, versus waiting until the other motor fails and then you got to roll up the carpet, open the hatches, do all the, get all the access and spend the 4 months in the yard or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So
plus, if you wait to do an overhaul because of a failure, it's almost always more expensive to do that overhaul or rebuild because of the failure than it is to do it just, hey, it's time, let's get it done and over with and bite the bullet. Plus, you get the chance to order all the parts in advance, schedule it into your life, and deal with it like in a proper manner, not like, oh shit, we got to deal with this,
When you have usually when you have an overhaul off of a failure, you do at that point have to take the block out of the boat. It can't be done in crate, because at that point the block does need to go to a machine shop and have a micrometer run on it and make sure that the where the bearings sit and where other components sit are at spec.
Sometimes it's also covered by insurance. Like, you have a customer that went through this, and they're overhauling they overhauled a motor, rebuilt the motor, but it was more, no, they're replacing it through insurance because it was more expensive to rebuild the motor than it was to buy a new one. And the decision got made, well, insurance is paying for one, we're going to just buy the other, because there's 1,000-hour discrepancy if they don't, and all part of this.
Well, and it's interesting because this is where it comes into play, the word overhaul, rebuild, etc. Because he got initially some quotes that made it seem like, yeah, actually, you know what, I can rebuild this motor, but it wasn't going to be overhauled. It was just going to be the bottom end.
Right.
Right. And so when they looked at what it truly cost to do a full overhaul on the motor, they were like, it makes no sense. Go buy a new motor. And
well, it was more expensive to do that rebuild.
Yep.
Than overhaul.
And there are some motors out there in all brands that, I hate to say it, but there are some motors out there that are basically kind of throwaway motors. Yanmar has them, Caterpillar has them.
We can't just replace cylinder linings and stuff, right?
Well, not just that. It's not even that. It's that the cost of it is,
it's prohibitive.
Yeah,
you just buy a new one.
It's $190,000 to buy a brand new, V8 1200 man. It costs $300,000 to zero out
sometimes too, it turns into how easy is it to overhaul the engine access wise, and do I need to pull it out of the boat, and what kind of surgery does that mean for the boat? And it sometimes does turn into, even though buying the new engine is cheaper, and in theory installing it would be cheaper, overhauling it's more practical or rebuilding it because of the surgery that has to happen to the boat.
That is true. That's a valid point. I mean, I have seen engines come out of boats in some very interesting ways. I've actually seen on a fiberglass boat, I've actually seen the engines come out the bottom.
I've seen refrigerators come out through windows.
Yeah.
Because it's easier than taking them out the back door.
Yep.
So that takes us to refits too. Brokers love to tout refits, and just getting a paint job is not a refit. Just replacing your cushions is not an exterior refit. just replacing your teak is not, all of those things combined would be a full-blown refit. If you do like one or two things that are massive, maybe that's a minor refit, but that term is thrown around quite a bit. And again, when did you do it? And is there documentation to support some of these things? A lot of the refit stuff, yeah, we can see it, but yeah, document your stuff and maintain a file.
Yeah, true. I mean, even paint work, right? Like somebody can have not all paint jobs are the same. We've talked about that in other episodes, but yeah, there's a lot to it, and at the end of the day, it boils down to documentation and the devil being in the details. You know, even in the details of the quote.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, when somebody presents to you records, you want to see invoices, not quotes.
Yeah, I'm going through it right now on a listing that I need receipts before I can put this in, you know, and I've talked to your captain, I've talked to you. I know you guys are telling the truth, but like, come on. I need to present this to a buyer potentially down the line, and I don't want to wait until we're on survey day and hand them a quote.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got this priced out once or twice. But,
well,
yeah.
We're down, kind of coming to the close of this episode, but basically, the information we want to share with everybody, both as fellow brokers, or as consumers, is you want to ask questions, right? You want to ask, okay, you're telling me this is rebuilt. What's that mean? You know, what got done?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, and what documentation is there to support it? Because there are words that are thrown around for marketing purposes that aren't always accurately used, and not maliciously. I don't think there's brokers that are trying to deceive people. I just think it's, you know, marketing first and not always with the information behind it that's necessary.
Yeah, agreed. And again, brokers asking questions and customers need to ask questions, but like you just went through it on the Seakeeper situation that you didn't know until after survey. It was just disclosed, hey, yeah, on survey, the Seakeeper doesn't work, but it was a lot more than that. Not only does it not work, but it hadn't been ran in 2 years, which probably means there's all kinds of shit wrong with it.
Right.
And that entails so much more than just the potential quote they might have gotten 2 years ago to fix it.
Right. And it created so much more hurdles to keeping the deal together, and ultimately we were able to keep the deal together. But
you got to set the expectation.
Exactly.
Because it's much easier to overcome that obstacle if everybody's aware of it, not finding out as we go, oh shit, you know, like this is
you told me this, but actually it's this, and that's what we're trying to encourage everybody to avoid. So.
Yeah. You know, I totaled a Rolls Royce once, and I don't think I ever told that story, but I'll just leave it at, I only drove it like 12 feet, but that got a full rebuild. And in that industry, it has like a real like definition behind it. But yeah, I should tell that story one day.
Yeah, that's a good one. Congratulations. You totaled a Rolls Royce.
I've never driven a Rolls Royce since. It's the only time.
Thanks for joining us, guys. This has been Talking Ship.
Yeah, appreciate it, guys, and we'll try to deliver some more episodes. And again, if you guys have any feedback,
as the dogs
you want to see the dogs on camera more, here he is. What's up, dude? But yeah, we'll try to get you some more episodes. We'd like the feedback. Send us some kind of hey, have this guest on, or you know, whatever your thoughts are. If you want to just tell us we're a bunch of assholes, you know, I like that too.
He's an asshole.
I am.
I'm a nice guy.
But we appreciate the feedback, and thank you for tuning in. We'll talk to you next time.
Turn it.